Okay, I guess we can start. So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Broadcast Unbound session, where we talk everything from IP to UHD and the implications of that. So, for me, one of the important things that we're going to look at today is not just about the technology, but really the impact that it's having on the industry, all of the people, engineers, producers, all of the creative side of the business, and how my colleagues here are managing those changes. So before we start, I'd like to get 30 seconds from each one of the panelists on their thoughts on the subject today.
Great, thanks. Hi everyone, I'm Brad Elliott from IMR Media. It's the holding company for Sky News Arabia and digital platforms like The National, CNN Business Arabic and LAN News. I think we're moving into an era where kind of the clock speed has been ramped up. So I think it's all about getting the right content to the audience, the relevant audience, at the right time in the right format. So that means we're going to have to be a lot more agile and responsive in how we create content and deliver it.
Indeed.
Don Wedgwood from Arqiva. Broadcast Unbound, I am really interested in this topic because for us, and for myself personally, there is a change point now where we are deconstructing everything we've ever known about this beautiful supply chain, whether you work in production, engineering, the business side of things. I think it's all up for grabs now to kind of deconstruct and think what actually matters. And we've got patterns that we've been following for years and years that have served us very, very well. But I think we've got to scrutinize all of that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's happening in many industries, right? Hey, Joe.
Hey, Paul. Good to see you, by the way.
Good to see you again, yeah. You're looking well.
Hajar Baranji, the CTO of Ruda Media Network, Erbil, Kurdistan region. Well, the subject means freedom to me, Paul. Freedom in any way possible.
Yeah.
Freedom in the way of collecting content and information, preparing them. Do not lock the audience or the distribution. Do not lock the language. Do not lock the device. Do not lock the one of the subjects that we might reach into later on in this panel, which is the distributed production as well.
Yeah.
So when we are combining all those new technology and we are talking about Broadcast Unbound, is basically freedom in any way possible.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, excellent. Without borders.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Mohammed.
Yeah, Mohammed Ubaid bin Zayed from eVision. Broadcast Unbound for us is the broadcast, the way how you manage your network, whether it's being on-prem, whether it's being in cloud, or going to the edge. It does not matter. It's what matters is how you deliver your content to the customer with a proper customer experience.
Hi, Jeremy Courtney from the Lavo CTO office. Broadcast Unbound for me, I think, is live production at any scale, delivered on flexible software media applications, running on standard compute, standard networking, being delivered and controlled and monitored from anywhere the user chooses.
Fantastic. So some really good answers, and I'm sure some of those resonate with the audience here. So we're going to dig in a little bit now to some of the things that we see happening here. So I'd like to turn to you again, Brad, not because you're just to my left, because that's the order in which I wrote. So when we talk about migration from SDI to IP technologies, often we refer it to as like keeping a patient alive while we're operating on them. But for you as a business, what's the hardest maybe engineering or organizational bottlenecks that you face when going through these things?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Paul. So we moved into new studios beginning of this year. So that gave us the opportunity to make that decision. So do we stick with the tried and tested patterns or do we move to IP? So we chose to move to 2110. And we did it for a number of reasons. We were bringing together 4 different business units into a building. We were building out new studios, newsrooms, digital assets. podcast studios. So we needed a lot of flexibility. IP-based was going to give us that ability. Time to market, cost, all those were kind of factored into things. So with the convergence of technology, it became a bit of a no-brainer. But the pain points were really much, as you say, we were running 24/7 channel.
Yeah.
We had to build out the new studios, test all the equipment, train up the operators and engineers on the new technology at the same time. So really it was a bit of a juggling act. I think the big takeaways and learnings for us was the ability for the engineers and operators to transition after working in a certain way for so many years was a lot harder on them than we thought. And that adoption took a lot longer. Now we're through the pain, and the learning curve is flattened, and we're reaping the rewards. So that there was a lot of pain in getting us through to that. The other was not all vendors were and are ready for full IP adoption. So we were lucky enough to have a really great systems integrator, being Quest, to help us through that. But even as of today, we're not fully IP native yet. We're still battling to get some of the vendors to transition across. And they're working with us and working with the core vendors, but keeping your support in place while still trying to transition to IP. I think there's a long tail there. It's not as simple as plug and play, but we took the pain, and now it's upside from here.
Oh, that's great to hear, and that's a really good one of the questions I was going to ask is how many broadcasters are actually fully IP yet? I think if we're all honest, there's still sort of mainly a hybrid across everywhere. And Jeremy, coming from a manufacturer's side, when you listen to stuff like this, do you see mainly as a tech, a talent, or a mindset change that's really like causing these changes when people are going through these changes? What do you see the main thing from a manufacturer's side?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all of the above, to be brutally honest. We're very big on bringing innovative solutions. Of course, we care about clever technology, but that has to solve a real customer problem. There's no reason for us to offer new technology, again, unless it adds value to our customers. So I think from our side of the fence, it's not dissimilar to our customers. We need to stay ahead of the game. We need to understand where the technology can add value. And of course, with new technology comes new challenges. And, part of our role as a vendor is to simplify. So quite rightly, our users want to use products in the way they've always used it. And yes, there are complexities in the technology when we spin up dynamic media facilities, but our job again is to make that simple and simplify that complexity so our customers can continue to work in the way they always have done.
Brilliant, thank you. And then really, I'd like now to turn to Dom and ask you a little bit about on remote and distributed production. So we saw in the pandemic, there was a big shift for remote production, but what, in your view, what's holding it back from being completely frictionless?
I think on remote production and distributed production, what I'd say is, yes, the pandemic was an accelerant, but I think we've been working in this way, especially in sport, for a long time. Having come from a content owner broadcast side of the industry for most of my career, we were leveraging distributed commentators, graphics for reversioning into different languages for many years. And working with sports federations that have busy calendars, like a lot of the racket sports, that has been something we've relied on for many years. I think the points of friction actually are not the technology and operations now, and they were for so long. I think technologists will probably agree with me. It's often things outside of our scope. It's more in the commercial domain, right cycles. We want to be able to run at a problem, create capability, but actually short sports rights cycles are still with us. It's great to see longer ones, which means you can fully invest in the workflows. We heard earlier about the importance of data across the whole supply chain. and how we're probably not leveraging that fully yet. There's a long way to go to take the intelligence we have at the production site and really exploit that for our consumers on whatever device they're watching. So I think remote production still has a commercial, there's a friction there in terms of being able to invest for the capability we need. I think the other thing is accountability across the supply chain. So we're still in these patterns of that supplier does this bit, I'll do the next bit, on to the next bit. So it's very difficult in a distributed way to say, what's our mean time to recovery in a live environment if you haven't rehearsed along the supply chain, that kind of accountability. And then the last one is still interoperability. We've come so far, but from a technical standards point of view, if sports are very high repetition sports, then you get your patterns and your integrations become embedded and it's playbooked. But for those sports that are more ad hoc, that's still a full integration at every point to make sure that everything works in that paradigm. So still quite a long way to go.
So there's still a bit of a way to go before we get there, but not necessarily so much on the tech side, but more on the people side. Okay, good. And Hajar, I remember when I worked in the industry, you used to tell me some fantastic stories of you and your teams going to some crazy locations. With this remote production, do you think like all of the cross cultures putting a production together can really replace the creativity of a local team a local crew on the ground? Do you think something's missed, or do you think the remote production is really working well?
Well, the story of remote production, Paul, was different for us a little bit. It didn't start with the pandemic. It started because our audience, especially at Ruda Media Network, is a Kurdish-speaking audience, which some of it lives in 4 different countries and some of it lives in a diaspora community. So anywhere from Washington, D.C. to New York to Moscow to Syria to Turkey, in Istanbul, Ankara, Diyarbakir, we had to somehow deal with this distributed production from day one. And then when the situation of war happened with ISIS in 2014, we saw that the audience are very much interested in the production that happens actually in the field. So we did a lot of productions in the field. That all came and created that culture to keep that creativity while you are distributing your production. And then I'm a huge believer of enriching things and combining things together. I am not all about leaving control rooms all empty and not letting the producer and the director and the art director and the graphist sit together at all. And I'm not about saying we need to do it all in this classic way. Always bringing new ways, be flexible, innovative, try to find new ways of doing things, try to show new things. And we as media organizations, I think, we have this privilege of looking at things a bit differently, because I see technology companies looking at it mainly from their expertise and their business plan point of view. And I see innovators and developers and tech giants are looking at it from, for example, streamer from streamer point of view, AI from AI point of view. But I think my vision, I should say, is to bring a new layer as media and say, oh, okay, if we combine AI, cloud, IP, remote production, content, all these new technology together, what is the new product? What is the new visionary thing, which I think I like to call it intelligent media. And I think the idea behind distributed production and new creations in media should bring in a new model that may not be called intelligent media, but certainly it would go towards something called intelligent media, all the way from creation to distribution and personalized distribution based on the audience, anywhere they are, whatever they want to see, to be more, personalized to them.
Yeah, I'm a great believer in personalization across most businesses. So that's, yeah, a very good point. And I knew we wouldn't get away on today's panel without raising the subject of AI, because I think it's everywhere now. So I'd like to ask Mohammed a question. We talk about self-driving control rooms, which we've just mentioned, but where does human judgment still sit and still take the rule over those decisions? Where do you draw the line?
Ethics, taste, and exceptions. All the rest of production or broadcasting facility can be run by automation. AI can be infused to support automation, to support the camera, logo, graphics generation. All this can be infused with the support of the AI. The director or the executive producer can decide which version of the AI-generated content used. So from our side, we see ethics, taste, and exceptions can be managed by people. The remaining can go to automation and AI.
Okay. All right, so it's leaving the humans to do just some of the hard part, but the AI is taking most of the process out of the way.
Yes.
Yeah. And Jeremy, I mean, in your industry, like, what's the trust level over AI when taking decisions? Where do you see it?
Yeah, I think we see it in a similar way. AI is an incredibly powerful tool. We obviously are all keen to leverage that, but you need to be careful. You need layers of governance, and as you say, you need a level of trust. So, could I see a newsroom today trusting AI with what goes to air? Maybe that's a stretch too far. Could we see AI being used in production automation? We've had good tooling for many years, but I'm absolutely sure it could enhance that tooling, and I'm absolutely sure kind of using it as an assistance tool to help humans achieve more is absolutely something that we're going to see, in a very prevalent way.
Okay, so definitely we're saying that AI is going to be rather than just driving efficiency, it's slowly coming into the collaboration world as well as just driving efficiencies across the business. Yeah. Okay.
There, a bit.
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah,
because I see that fear, especially when it comes to newsroom with AI, that, generative AI could, have issues here and there. But guys, let's look at it differently. Why should we just generate news with AI? In news industry, we could do a lot of things with AI, which one of my ambitions and ideas, I should say, since we are talking about being unbound, right? Mm-hmm. So being unbound is, for example, there is a Sky News English, and I had the privilege of visiting the guys at Sky News Arabia in Abu Dhabi just a few months back as well. Why shouldn't we be thinking of using AI for the content that we are generating based on the editorial standards of, for example, Sky UK for the Kurdish audience? Why can't we think about a workflow that the human element of, for example, an English outlet, or for example, a Kurdish journalist at Ruda Media Network generating a content that's already been fact-checked, that's already been reliable, that's already been editorially checked, and just use AI to take the model of the audio of that journalist and regenerate it in a different language and translation to recreate that content. Companies like Avid, like Mimar, Saga, all those companies that they work in news gathering and news creation and production asset management, they should be able to think about ways of unbounding the language barrier of services to be able to give the power to everyone in this world to be able to reach the information and the news that they need in the fastest way possible. And this is another way that we could generate AI and use it in news industry without damaging the credibility of the news material.
It's really interesting you say that, because I was looking at a platform the other day that's doing exactly this. It's pulling local news feeds from all over the world and just having AI translate them on the fly and delivering them to people way quicker than the traditional news channels. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So you were being able to pick up feeds and get them translated exactly as they were originally broadcast in the local town, as opposed to having any filters put on them.
Sure, on top of that, you
Yeah.
can still use the human element and have the same journalist, because we need to give the right to that journalist who generated that content to be able to show them even on the screen, and the same voice would read the same news in Portuguese, from Kurdish, or from English to Arabic, at the fastest pace possible, so that we have these different perspectives and freedom of reaching information in any way possible.
Yeah, I love this because that it's quick and it builds ultimate trust as well, right? So yeah, I'm all for that. I think that's really good.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great practical example, and it's a good way, again, of augmenting what we do today. So that's absolutely providing efficiencies, and I think there's lots of other examples of, in a workflow using AI as a preemptive tool to perhaps foresee problems that are coming or unexpected things happening in your network, or monitoring what's been happening and guiding users. I think, again, there's lots of good ways we can leverage it, again, in augmenting how we work today.
Yeah, brilliant.
I think using AI only as a cost saving or efficiency control, it's not the only reason of using AI. It's more of a revenue generating as well. So we have to think of that.
Yeah.
Just to highlight, we have seen solutions where you can create a human clone where they can immediately translate the language and speak in different languages with the whole facial expression happening exactly how it's supposed to be. But people need to change their perspective from using AI of cost saving, operational cost saving efficiencies to revenue generating as well.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. And even from my side on content production side, we were producing something for an actor the other day, but he couldn't actually star in it because he was filming something else. So he had a big beard and he needed to film something where he didn't need a big beard. So he allowed use of his own AI image to do the commercial. So that was kind of cool. I know it causes a lot of upset in the production space, but I also see people from the television and film industry reskilling themselves because, back when I was doing TV stuff, it was all when analog went to digital and everyone was saying, oh no, everyone can do editing now. But actually, if you still need the creative elements as a human in order to prompt and make AI work as you should. So I think there's space for both.
Yeah, Paul, if I could just add in there, there's some real good use cases out there. So for example, in our case, when we're covering maybe a war somewhere and maybe you can't actually get footage back, maybe there's a lockdown in terms of internet blackout, or physically the journalists and the cameraman can't actually get to the area they need to be in. We've sometimes used AI-generated footage to then supplement the story. Clearly, then you need proper human oversight and trust, and the responsible use of AI to make sure that what you're putting out there is ethically correct, and it is contextually correct as well. But there's a great example of where you can actually, when you physically can't be there, a little bit similar to the beard and the clean-shaven guy.
Yeah.
It's a similar sort of scenario.
Yeah, no. So there's a lot of good use cases, I think, and balanced off with not taking everybody's jobs, So I think that's important. And back to you, Hajar. So moving away slightly now, going on to content quality. We talk about UHD and ultra sort of very high definition. It's technically stunning, and this was always an argument that I think when HD first came out. Is there an audience for it? Can you get ROI on CapEx now when you invest in these ultra high quality formats? Is there a market for it, do you think?
By the way, those monitors are now working. We have a very hard time listening to you guys, actually.
Yeah, it's quite hard, actually, when...
It's because these guys are not working, just to let the audio guys know. Again, Paul, when you look at it this way, we shouldn't be seeing technology as just from the ROI point of view. It's a matter of what is the first objective, what is the first goal of distributing those content. Maybe the goal of distributing the content for a sport distribution, gaming distribution, or anything like those, the main goal is generating content based on what people needs and the personalization that you mentioned. However, when it comes to news production in the Middle East, that's a different thing. We are touching people's heart. We are touching people's daily life. We are making a change. We are making a difference in people's life. So if someone really wants to enrich their lives, change their lives by watching sports, a Middle Easterner may want to see the news in its best format and quality possible in different formats so that it affects better. I was talking to my very good friend Fadi just at the break, asking him, if you were doing Blink today, what would you make different? And then he thought, and he was like, okay, maybe it reached its goal. But who would think that we will get to a point that we would say for those small screens that all of us are using, we would still shoot with very high-end 4K cameras, with very high-end graphic systems like PixArt, with very high-end news gathering technologies. So I always say, this question has been asked from me for the last 3 years of what did we miss? Why are you going to IP? Why are you going to UHD? You are a news production. Why do you think this is the need? Why do you think this is the emerge? Well, why not? Why not? If the human being can receive the content in a better way, why not giving them that ability? A news organization that can generate news, that can do production, and somehow they are getting their budget, somehow they are getting their income from advertisement or like subscription or sponsorship or whomever has that objective of delivering that content to them, why not using that in its best way possible to give it to them in the best quality possible as well? But I think definitely it has a business side as well.
Yeah.
If you give better quality, better service in any business, the return will be in some way better as well.
Yeah.
So I do believe in quality in any work that you do. I do believe in enrichment in anything that you do. And I do believe that human beings should not see limitation and always think outside of that square box of status quo and try always to go outside of that, because this is something that you cannot ignore. You can say, I'm not agreeing with you. You can say, I'm not there. You can say, I don't think it's needed. However, you cannot ignore expansion and keeping human being from seeing things from different aspects outside of the box, making it better and better and better and better. Every one of us in our lifetime have seen sometime when we saw the color television in the 70s and 90s, when we saw HD TVs coming up. So we all thought, what would be better than this? This is the end of it. But no, suddenly something else comes up and says, no, there is a better than this. You guys even made audio better than what it was, and you will make it better than it is. We will make content better than it is now in any way possible, even beyond UHD.
Yeah, good. So we become like the Formula One of television, keep pushing the technology boundaries. And Mohammed, do you see the same? Obviously coming from EAND and this region being very mobile first, would you subscribe to that view as well that Hajar's just shared?
That is true. I mean, giving a better customer experience, higher resolution, more enriched, more impressive experience, it's a key for customer retention, keeping the customer engaged into your platform, keeping them always coming back to consume content. Today, you see the experience of people using the big screen to the small screen, it's varying, so you have to also address that factor where you have to make sure your content is adapted to the screen that you're targeting. So I agree, it is important that we always excel and improve our technology to support better customer experience.
Fantastic. And Brad, after all of this, what's next? Sorry, eyes are wonky.
Been called many things, but not Brad. Tom, shall I go?
Tom, yeah, sorry.
No worries. I think I absolutely agree with the sentiment, especially at the top tier and top tier media organisations, or for top tier content. Arqiva is a managed service provider, and we bring technology solutions to a whole array of customers. Never did I think, when you think about Arqiva, if you know it, it's 100 years old, it supports all of the traditional over-the-air TV, radio in the UK, as well as cutting-edge technologies today. But never did I think we'd be looking at customers like content creators, YouTubers, and having to satisfy them with managed services as well. So we've got the full spectrum to think about. So quality has to equal engagement, and I think we sometimes, the broadcast industry, have been bound by what we know in our industry, and it's romantic to think how TV's been created, and we should fascinate about encoding and picture quality and everything else. As a managed service provider, we're having to kind of make sure we know what it really means for the customer, depending, meeting them where they are. My former life at DAZN, we knew that for live sports, there was a sweet spot between 4K and 1080p HDR, because that then allowed us to scale. And it was about balancing the inevitable costs of it with the engagement. But there is absolutely case for marquee sports to be at 4K and to satisfy the partnerships with the TV manufacturers who have an agenda to make sure that we're pushing the devices in homes. For the lower end market that want to be able to use our services, if we don't cater for them with solutions that meet them where they are, they go round us.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening to this industry. So if we don't look at the absolute outcome of all that we talk about, we'll just get surpassed by content creators finding a way. And the tipping point comes when someone like Mark Goldbridge, Manchester United, it's called the United Stand, 3.5 million subscribers. And he's given rights to live sport.
Yeah.
The paradigm's shifted. So we've got to be careful to not fascinate on the shiniest, the most expensive. That's part of the kit of parts for us as a managed service provider, absolutely. But having the breadth for the whole customer base is important.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. And now, back to Brad, sorry. Thanks, Tom. We talk about all of this connectivity and production and remote everything, everywhere. And what, for broadcasters, what impact is that on cybersecurity? I know, hacking in broadcast has always been a problem, but with this increased remote production and connectivity globally, how are broadcasters addressing cyber now?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. It's at the core of everything we do now. So before it was just the domain of the corporate IT guys, where they had to look after cyber. Now it cuts across everything. And touching on a little bit what we spoke about earlier, the vendor community is also catching on to that. So, in the past, there'd be certain OEM vendors that wouldn't allow you to install, antivirus onto servers. That's shifted. That's changed now. People are becoming a lot wiser to it and embracing it.
Yeah.
It has to be part of, security by design in terms of all the architecture, whether it be your broadcast environments, your corporate IT, and that convergence of those technologies is now what's bringing that to the fore.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And then maybe Jeremy, how do you see, there's a lot of reliance or resilience on cloud now. How do you see the best way to build out solutions?
Yeah, I think the first thing just to clarify is cloud means different things to different people.
Yeah.
So, you can have an on-premise cloud, you can have an off-premise cloud. In our eyes today, the virtualization piece has moved on. Containerization is absolutely the way to go. It's more efficient, it's cheaper, you get more bang for your buck. And for us, again, that can happen whether you've got infrastructure on the ground or in the cloud. And ideally, you need ways of using a mix of the two, depending on your use case.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, so we're coming around to the last few minutes of the session. So I'll go around. I'll start from Mohammed. So if you were to build a new facility from scratch tomorrow, What's the one legacy habit that you would leave behind? And this is going to go to everybody on the panel.
I think treating a change as a rare. Change is always going to be there. And going forward, we will see more and more changes and improvement. So this is for me, change is the only constant that I see going forward.
Okay.
Looking at the old days of broadcasting, keeping everything static, using the old technology, the conventional way of doing it, I don't think this will go forward with us.
Thank you. Hajar? Oh, I can go somewhere else. If you...
No, all good. You know, Paul, I would like to touch on this security subject a little bit because we are a huge target of that cybersecurity thing. Security is not something, as mentioned, tied to IT anymore. It should live in every single editorial or technical person in any organization nowadays. And it's not just a matter of being targeted by cybersecurity attacks and hacks. It's being targeted by very smart, planned ways of manipulating your mind as well as an organization as well. Because there is new ways of targeting your mind that they would want you to think differently, the way they want you to think. And I think that's the biggest hit, that's the biggest fear that right now it's emerging, that they want to change the way people think. So we need to make sure that the current generation and the future generations are well prepared to be protected both on cyber attacks as well as the information attacks that they would get to make sure that we are still receiving reliable, liable, correct information. On the what we would do differently, I would say I always want to make things more flexible in any way possible. Just be flexible, future-proof, more and more and more. Do it in a way that you can expand on it. Do it in a way that you can change it. Everything that you might believe in 100% today might not work tomorrow. So do it in a way that it's changeable, flexible. Flexibility is the key for any organization to stay on top of what they do.
Yeah, definitely everything open and
exactly.
Don't close yourself in a walled garden.
Unbound, right?
Yeah, unbound, yeah, unbound, exactly. You took the words out of the title. So, Dom.
One thing I'd leave behind is left to right diagrams. They need to be right to left. And any businesses now involved in streaming start there, starting with the end consumer. I think in terms of what we've talked about, using tools that only have value for our output is an obvious thing to say, but it's very hard to go against the habits of this industry and our upbringing, no matter what angle you've come at. I think also I would not leave behind all of that broadcasting experience, but if I was creating completely fresh company and a fresh product, it would then amalgamate with obviously a lot of data capability, but I think I'd also have in there gamers and pirates.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I think that's very good. And then finally, Brad.
Yeah, I just want to touch on something Dom said. I think it encapsulates everything. You've got to meet your audience where they are. So I think it means flexibility and agility. So no matter how that consumer, client, user wants to experience the content, whether they want to listen to a podcast, have a summarized text article, view it on a lean back screen, vertical video on social, you've got to be able to cater for all of those because that's what your audience is now expecting.
Yeah.
So that means when you build it out, you've got to have that in mind, future-proofed and flexible and open.
Brilliant. Okay.
And then maybe just for me quickly, Paul, I would, I guess, summarise in very similar sentiment that the world changes very quickly these days. We all need to adapt and we all need to remain relevant. And I quite like the left to right analogy, but I guess I would phrase it as static workflows. You can't have static workflows. You shouldn't have proprietary products that do single functions. That doesn't allow you to adapt.
Indeed. All right, well, so a big thank you to all of the panelists today. I hope that was insightful for everybody. A lot of similar challenges faced by everyone, I guess, and looking forward to the next 15 years of Broadcast Pro and seeing these guys here in another 15 years. Probably not me, but these guys might still be alive. But thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day.